But welcome. We've got Danny Fight Fan TV, we've got Maestro, and we've got Base the Kid, the residents. And we're here to maybe talk, maybe argue, maybe debate, but whatever it is, we are together, we are strong, and we're going to keep this thing moving. Should we start with last night? Should we just start with last night? Because
Well, there's two
the
things
box,
this
the
night, right?
boxer card. Should
Okay,
we
the
start
box.
with boxer, or do you want to start with Matchroom?
I
I'm
was
easy wherever.
I wasn't impressed by either card, so I'm good with either one personally. I got a lot to say
Oh,
on both.
okay. Well, we'll start with boxer because
Okay,
boxer home based.
yeah.
We can have the American correspondence on that. And actually, I want to touch on something from that
Mm.
because I was listening to the Boxing Voice and they were extremely upset with a few things. And it seems like they weren't very receptive of the UK vibe in the US, but we can get you to touch on that. But we'll
Okay.
start with the boxer card, and I'm going to start with impressive work, and I'm going to go straight in for Ben Whittaker. Ben Whittaker, that seems to have gone viral this morning. I've seen reels, I've seen X videos, and he's on millions of views. His style is rubbing people up. I'd say his style is rubbing the Americans up the right way, but rubbing the UK fans up the wrong way. And I really think that he's going to be more appreciated in the US before he's fully embraced in the UK. I don't know. Let's run with that one to start. Anyone?
I'll,
Family?
I'll jump in on this one. I met Ben Whittaker over the summer in Manhattan. He was visiting with Sugar Hill Stewart at the time, and a couple other fighters. Nice guy, actually very humble in person when you speak to him and you meet him one on one. What I will say about his style is that I'm not quite a big fan of it personally, and I'll tell you why. It's one thing for you to clown if you're Joe Calzaghe against Roy Jones Jr. when you're showing up in Roy's home country, and essentially you're outroaring Roy in that fight, so to speak. I remember at a moment in that fight, Calzaghe like put his hands behind his back and almost tried to bait Roy Jones into like an attack, almost like a mongoose, fighting a cobra. I was very entertained by that. The reason I'm not entertained by Ben Whittaker is we're talking about a guy who's bringing up names like Beterbiev and Bivol. Maybe there are people who believe that he's ready for those guys. I'm not one of them. But the guy he fought yesterday, Khalid Gridia, never heard of this dude before. Went into the fight with a losing record. So, it's like Cosmo Creamer beating up on children in the karate dojo in the Seinfeld episode. I mean, are we supposed to be impressed by this?
Well,
Danny?
I mean, I know who Gradio was. I've seen him fight several times. He's a very tough opponent. This is only the third person who's ever actually like stopped him in the ring. So the credentials are there for him. I understand you haven't heard of him, but I mean, ultimately, we don't all know everyone's opponents.
Yeah.
But he's very well known in the UK. He's been on the UK circuit
For winning or for losing more fights than he wins?
for being a tough opponent. That's what he's known for. He's a journeyman. What do you want him to do? Like Ben's only had what 4 or 5 fights. He's still a prospect at this point.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here, let's get into it. Okay, because we're talking about the U.S. audience appreciating this and the UK audience maybe not appreciating it. I'm going to talk to you about this from a U.S. perspective. You want to talk about blue chip prospects? Look at a guy like David Morrell Jr. Look at who David Morrell Jr. was facing 2 fights, 3 fights, 4 fights in. I'll be honest, it wasn't against the likes of a guy who's 10-13. If you wanna show off beating up a guy who's, as you just admitted, Base, he's known for being a tough loser in boxing. A guy who I guess is known for taking a beating. I'll take your word for it. But I'm sorry, like you want to stunt on people or show off in the ring. do it against at least a guy with, I don't know, a 60% winning streak, maybe 55. But when you're losing more fights than you're winning, people aren't really going to enjoy you clowning a guy who was literally brought in to lose. That's my perspective.
I
But
hear your perspective. Sorry, go on.
Almost every single prospect that comes up, almost every single boxer realistically who's on the quote unquote A side, their opponent is brought in to lose. No one brings the opponent in to win. So obviously that's just what's gonna happen. Now look, at the end of the day, I've always said, I've maintained something similar to you in the sense that I've said I actually like the showboating, but I only like it provided he carries on doing it as he steps up the levels. If he only does it now and then all of a sudden gets real serious when he starts getting to the bigger opposition, then I will have an issue with it. I'll say, oh well, where was it now? Like, so that means that you was literally on low hanging fruit. That being said, he done the exact same thing at the Olympics. He's done it in the amateurs against world-class amateur boxers. So this idea that, oh, he's only doing it against these no-hopers is actually not the case. That's just literally who he is. Unfortunately, what you either like it or you don't. And if you right now you're in the camp that you don't, fine. When he starts doing it further up the chain and is delivering still on the knockouts or the exciting performances or getting the viral moments, maybe then you will like it. And if you don't, then maybe that just might be an issue with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything's subjective. Everything is your own perspective. But I mean, in his last fight, he fought a guy that was 11-2. Previous to that, 13-6. Previous to that, 6-3. Previous to that, 6-0. So I get when there's a natural progression here, but we've literally gone from guys that have won most of their fights to a guy who, like I said, and like you said, Base, is brought in essentially being a tough punching bag. Like,
well, no, I never said that. I said he's a tough night's work. He doesn't. He might lose a lot of fights, but he takes rounds off people. He's a decent enough guy in that sense. He's a journeyman, yes, but
Dan Aziz go with him.
Yeah, he went the distance. Dan Aziz went the distance with him. Ezra Taylor went the distance with him. Carol Latama went the distance with him. The only people who stopped him was Zach Parker and now Ben Whitaker. And there was one previous person years ago. So he's very much like a Dobyshenko type person. He's there. If you're not of the level, he will either beat you or he will put a beating on you. But if you are of the right stuff, you will get through him and prove that you're ready for the next step. That's his role, unfortunately.
Well, look, things are a little bit different in the UK. Obviously, you don't have government overseeing your boxing like we do in the United States, which is very interesting because the United States is known mostly, for, capitalist, almost semi-libertarian freedom. But it's the UK that actually has no government oversight really in boxing whatsoever. I'll be honest with you, this fight would not have been approved by the New York State Athletic Commission. You're talking about a guy who went into this fight with 1, 2, 3, 4 straight losses and a majority draw. I mean, I don't even know how this fight was approved. So again, I'm just talking about it from a guy looking at a fight where a guy hasn't won a fight in his last, 7 fights, and somebody is showing off and showing up that particular opponent. Look, this is going to be the last thing I got to say on this.
No. Don't let it be the last thing. Don't let it be the last thing.
I was not into.
No, Maestro, don't let it be the last thing. That's very interesting what you said. So you said that the New York State Athletic Commission wouldn't have sanctioned this bout. So
I don't believe
how the journeyman get their opportunities in America then if they wouldn't sanction somebody who's lost 4 fights in a row?
Okay, that's very, very important that you say this because, first of all, the United States, again, is not like Britain. So you have literally 50 different state commissions, plus commissions that oversee boxing in the various Native American jurisdictions that are spotted around the country. So a lot of times when you see casino fights in various places, those fights are actually under the jurisdiction of various Native American commissions. But what I will say about New York State has a much more stringent licensing procedure than other states. And, I can name some of those states, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama. I could go on and on. it's very difficult to get a guy licensed for a fight in New York State coming off of multiple losses. And in this case, we're talking about a guy who has not won a fight in his last 6 or 7 fights. Now, granted, they weren't by knockout, but they were still losses, consecutive losses, a string of consecutive losses. That's the job of the state commission to oversee that. And even when you're talking about what goes on behind the scenes, like I've had people reach out to me asking me to secure fights against their fighters, and I'm part of various groups with matchmakers and managers, and you routinely get messages like, "I'm looking for a fighter at 147, no more than 2 consecutive losses." It literally says that in the message, in the call out.
Right.
So again,
This is kind of like twofold.
Sorry, go ahead.
This is twofold, because we've got, basically, you don't think the fight should have been sanctioned, and the second part of it is you don't like him showboating at this level. I think there's going to be differences, because like you said, there's different commissions over there in the US, and for whatever reason, he was commissioned to take this fight with Ben, who was going into fight number 6. Ben Whittaker, when it comes to his showboating, when it comes to his style, I've got to back what Bay said. He's always done it. I've been in the gym with him and watched him spar. It's something that just comes naturally. It's almost like you could even say like a nervous disposition. It's his style. It's who he is. It's part of who he is as a fighter. And it's just so crazy. And even though you say that, yeah, this fight shouldn't have been sanctioned, but the casual fans, the casual US fans are loving him right now. Absolutely loving him. That, you know, you've had Shaquille O'Neal tweet him, you've had Ice Cube's son, and they're like, "Who is this?" People like in the comments talking about the refs hating. We love this, and it's been real positive feedback. So, putting aside whether you think the opponent was credible or not, Ben Whittaker is going to be Ben Whittaker, and I think we're going to get that style from him continuously, as long as he's fast enough, quick enough to do it in between the shots, because you've got to be able to be a fast thinker on your feet to even box like that. Whether you like it or not, that's down to you. Everyone's open to their personal choice. But if we're going to critique the fighter, then we've got to critique the management team. We've got to critique the promoter for that fight. But as far as Ben Whittaker's style is concerned, that's who he is.
No, I agree with you 100%. I don't have a problem with his style. I don't have a problem with him doing it. I just had a problem with this opponent and this level of fight. And also, I'll be honest, the referee was hated. Like, I don't know, unless there's something he's doing that's against the rules, I don't really know why you're giving out warnings for it personally. So that much I do agree with 100%.
The 360 spin is illegal. He shouldn't have been doing the 360 spin. The other stuff was a bit like excessive. Yeah, he did a move where he kind of used the back of his hand where he did the tap on the head. That was the ref shouldn't have jumped on that. But the one where he kind of used the back of his hand with the flick jab, some refs would, but it was part of the move, so it wasn't. I don't think he should have pulled him, but the ref was doing the most in it. He just wanted to be seen and that guy in it. But you have to remember, Prince Nassim Hamid was showboating early doors as well against journeymen like Peter Buckley and these guys who were getting blown over as well early doors. And, you know, certain people didn't like it because it was all new. And then people, you know, it started growing on them. So it's one of those ones, really. So Naz was doing it against low level opposition as well back in the day. But remember, Ben Whittaker was doing it in the Olympics, hopping on one leg. So it's not like he's just all of a sudden started doing it as a pro. He was doing this in the Olympic Games, which you can go on YouTube and see to verify if you don't believe that he was doing it at top level, amateur level as well. Yes, you're talking about David Morrell, but David Morrell is very special. I feel he's a bit more mature as a man, even though he's probably about the same age as Ben. But yeah, everyone starts off at a different level. Morrell's getting very fast tracked, whereas Ben's getting brought along. And who knows? They might see each other at some stage when Morrell moves up. Who knows? But for now, let Ben just continue building and doing what he needs to do, and enjoy the ride and enjoy the show.
And
Enjoy the
actually,
ride.
I did actually see, now that I think about it, the Parker fight, and also the Carol Atoma fight. Um, Now that I've looked through this brother's box rec more thoroughly, but yeah, um, anyways, it is what it is. He got the win in the fight he was supposed to win, and he entertained a large segment of the boxing public. So congrats to Ben Whitaker. I just hope to see
Yeah.
it a little bit stronger, especially if he's talking about being ready for Better Be and Yard and all of these guys in the light heavyweight division.
I like to see the fighters with ambition, albeit it seems so unrealistic, but fighters are competitors. It's what they do, and they want to be the king of the castle. Shout out to everybody in the chat that's joined us. 99.9% of you. Mike Tyson's sixth fight, so Dreadpaw, Mike Tyson's sixth fight was against Larry Sims, who was 3, 16, and 2 at the time of coming off a 9-fight losing streak in Mid-Houston Civic Center, New York. So there will be anomalies to this. Thank you very much.
Well, what I will say to that, October Red, is number one,
Mhm.
that was literally in the 1980s. I don't even
What,
know if
before the rules were changed?
yeah, I mean, New York State went through a lot of changes after a heavyweight got sent to a coma in a fight a few years back, and essentially was rendered, it's paralyzed, brain dead status, and his family sued the New York State Athletic Commission and earned a hell of a lot of money through it. Unfortunately, no money is going to replace what happened to the man, but that's one thing. The other thing too is Mike Tyson's ascension in the heavyweight ranks is notorious, or infamous, I should say, for that. And also, he was 19 when that fight was referenced. So, I'm not here to make excuses for Mike Tyson, but I was a different age, different era, and totally different kind of fighter.
Different age, different era, and we've spent a lot of time talking about Ben Whitaker. Congratulations to him. I'm looking forward, as I'm sure most of us are, to seeing his career develop as a fighter and take those challenges. We've got to talk about Buatsi and Aziz, a friendly, I don't know, friends turn foes, sparring partners turn fighters. Your thoughts on that fight? I thought it was very entertaining. As you know, I like both fighters. I get on with them both very well. I don't know, Danny, I'm going to throw it to you. Do you want to start off your
Yeah,
thoughts on that fight?
yeah, I thought it was a good fight. At times it was a bit sparring-ish though, which was a bit. So I'm not sure if maybe the layoff for both them, or they got into the friend zone. I don't know. Maybe familiarity too much made it a bit sparring-ish at times, but it was a close fight on the cards, especially as I had it 95-95 going into the 11th round, and in the slippery
Did you?
canvas. Yeah. I scored it round by round. And then obviously it went 10-7 and then 10-9 in the 12th. But so that 11th round ultimately took the whole fight away from Dan. But even though Dan was having success, it seemed like Buatsi was in control for a lot of it. He was able to control Dan quite well, especially on the inside, and work away the body, which was able to slow Dan down. But what it is that he still gets caught with the jab so often. It's like, and when Buatsi takes breaks, Dan was trying to get onto him more, trying to sort of. Craig suffered that where he should have been getting onto him when Buatsi takes breaks. Dan was trying a bit more, but then he also is a bit too one-paced, and he was just trying to look for the single shots, rather than really trying to set up combinations and hard combinations. Some of his punches, it didn't look heavy enough to sort of really deter or push Buatsi back. I know a lot of people are saying off the back of that performance, some say that they felt Buatsi carried him, but then in the same breath, they're saying Yard knocked out Buatsi based off that performance. A lot of people. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So they're saying that fight's going to be next. So, but yeah, I think Buatsi, he looked good. He at the weigh-in, he looked a bit drained in his body. Dan looked drained in his face. He came in very light, surprisingly. I'm not sure what happened there. But But yeah, I thought overall it was a good fight, but it wasn't as exciting as I thought it would have been. And Boatsy, he's once again, he still didn't look as ferocious as he has in the past. Like he wasn't throwing the real wingers, the humdingers, like he was trying to throw at Craig, the real malicious, bad intentions type punches. He wasn't throwing them on Dan. And if he put some together in the 12th and he had Dan rocking, maybe yeah, he was tired. But yeah, I don't know. Something in me thinks has something did something in the Craig fight come out of Boatsy that night, because his last two fights he hasn't looked like that same menace ever since. He hasn't really looked like that same guy ever
Is that you
since.
being biased?
No, I'm just saying, since that fight, he hasn't looked the same guy. He's not throwing with the same intentions. He's not fighting the same way no more. He's not really going for it. And he could have really gone for it last night. Yeah, fair enough. Powell Stepien was ducking about and stuff like that. But this one, Dan was in front of him and he wasn't letting him go. Do you know what I'm saying? And so something's saying he wasn't, I think something might have been taken out of him.
Yeah, come in, Base. What you think about that? Base is usually good at like really being like totally objective. So what do you think?
Regarding what, something being taken out of him, or just my thoughts on the fight?
Yeah. And to like say what Danny said, to go on to what Danny said.
I mean, I guess if you look at it, in the last two fights, he has looked a little bit different. He's definitely looked. When I saw yesterday and the Stepien fight, two things that I kind of noticed is that whereas before he used to throw his shots, he used to like throw his shots without thinking. Now it almost looks like there's a thought process. There's, okay, my foot needs to be here before I throw the shot. Like, because Virgil Hunter kept saying, you know, we need to build him from the ground up, from the feet up now, because he's always been like head and body first. So every time I see it, it never looks like he's throwing fluid motion shots, attacks now. Everything looks like, okay, I have to do this, I have to make sure I'm here, I have to step here. And then it's like he's just taking almost a half a second too long to do certain things. And then it is causing him to potentially, I guess, miss the target, because there were several times yesterday where he went to go swing some very wild shots that I've seen him land on people before. Now, admittedly, obviously, Dan is a much smaller guy, very sort of mobile, and is able to get low and crouch. But it's even like when he's throwing, if you imagine, I'm going to use a very cheap example, but an old school fight when we used to be in school, right? You get one guy that's just going to put the big swing in, and then you're going to get the other guy that's going to motion and then try and throw it. But by the time he's motioned, and then like he's giving you the opportunity to move. And that's kind of what it looked like in some of the exchanges yesterday. Is like there was a hesitation from Boatsy, and the hesitation stopped that punch from connecting. But in terms of the fight, I scored it. I actually had it 6 rounds to 6 is how I scored it. The 11th round was very obviously it was very controversial, and I feel like that kind of changed the tide of the fight. Whether people agree with the scorecard I actually had I had Aziz up until the 10th, and then I had Boatsy winning the 11th and the 12th, obviously winning the 11th clear, and ultimately having a 114-112 scorecard. So 6 rounds to 6, but 2 points off for the two knockdowns, which I was very upset about at the time. I was watching the fight with my dad. Both myself and my dad was like, nah, he slipped. Those weren't no legit knockdowns. Like, what's the ref playing at? So, yeah, but unfortunately, but even on my scorecard, even though I had Aziz winning, I still had the idea that, yeah, a lot of people, there's still a lot of rounds here. They're very close. So I'm expecting them to go Boatsy's way, and some did. I mean, the 117, 109 scorecards, I had issues with. I think Aziz, you can't say he only won 3 rounds in that fight.
Yeah, that was wild.
In my opinion. But look, he done great. You know, valiant in defeat. The first few rounds was very slow on both of them, and when I was watching, I actually said that. Well, actually, no. Forget when I was watching. When I spoke to him on Thursday, For anyone who may have seen that, I did ask him, look, you've always been a person that is good with a lot of momentum and activity. So how do you think this extra time between those two fights is going to affect your momentum and affect like you generally? And he said, well, hopefully it's not. It's only really 6 months. It's not that bad. Some people will have 12 months off and more, but I do get the best out of myself when I'm more active, when I'm constantly learning, when I'm constantly in the gym. So I said the inactivity works for Boatsi a lot better than it works for Dan Aziz. So having those extra 2 months to me definitely played a part. He seemed a bit flat-footed. He didn't seem as sharp and as springy as he usually is. He seemed a bit slower. And again, I still maintain, I don't know how much the back played into it, but I still have a feeling like he had subconscious in his mind, all right, I can't move too much this way, that way, like my back, I got to make sure the back is protected. And so I feel that both of them were sloppy in the first few rounds, especially, but I just think that Boatsi grew into the fight better. Dan allowed him to control the pace of the fight, which is obviously what Boatsi wants. And Joshua ultimately is better at fighting off of a layoff than Aziz is. And I feel like that extra experience from the amateurs up to obviously this this period just ultimately told. And the fact that it's familiarity, regardless of whether both guys are not the same as they were in that very last spar, they still know how each other fight. They know each other's tells, their movements. And I guess Boatsi just had more of that in the bag and just had more to his favor. So yeah, it was a fair victory. Like I said, I would have had it a draw minus the 2 knockdowns, potentially an Aziz win, because I felt Aziz was winning that 11th prior to the first knockdown, and then obviously the second one. But yeah, it was a decent fight. I feel like it would have been much better if it did happen in October when it was supposed to, when both guys were fresh, just coming off of their last victories. But we are where we are, and they put on a good performance. Both of them came out healthy. None of them, as far as I'm aware, had to go hospital for anything. So big ups.
Yeah. Let me just off the back of that, yeah, I had my scorecard was 115, 111, so it was 1 round difference to bases. So how I had it, I gave the first and second round to Boatsi, the third round to Dan. Yeah, the fourth round to Dan as well. The fifth round I gave to Boatsi, sixth to Dan, seventh and eighth to Boatsi, ninth to Dan, and then obviously the 10-7 for Boatsi in the 11th, and then 10-9 for Boatsi in the 12th. So it's 115, 111. But yeah, 95 going into that 11th round. And yeah, Danny's jaw did look quite swollen in the end, but I think he's all right. I could see he was very devastated, and Boatsi even said he felt bad having to take his belts from him and stuff because he considers him a friend. But they both got to do what they got to do. You got to be selfish in this sport, unfortunately. But yeah,
Maestro.
Yeah, look, I agree with most of what Bass said, and Danny's scorecard to me was spot on. And by the way, Bass's scorecard, you can make a clear case for what Bass said, depending on how you're scoring fights and what you're looking at. It was a very close fight, and I felt that he was just like, he got really, really it was unfair what happened to him in that round. I mean, there were multiple instances before what I think were 2 slips where extensive time was being taken out of the fight to wipe down the canvas. Clearly there was an issue there. So, we've all seen what it looks like when somebody slips on some ice or falls, or like their feet are taken from under them. It's a very different motion than when somebody's hit with a punch and they fall. Like you know what it looks like to see somebody slip, and the movement was so exaggerated that to me it was clear, at least with my own eyes, even watching it live. I didn't need to see the replay to understand fully that I felt that he slipped on essentially a slippery surface. I felt that it was a very close fight going into the fight. I felt that it was very close going into that 11th and that 12th round. And then, of course, you go from
Your mic.
No
Your mic.
sound. Where's your sound gone, Maestro? Maestro's in full flow. Oh yeah,
Oh,
let's see if he comes back in.
yeah. But I had it
When they
7-5.
read
How
that,
did you have it?
well, I didn't score it because I was obviously round by round. But as I was speaking about it, to me, it was close, and I did pull a face when the scorecards were read out. I thought that's a bit wide, but I
Tell-
Yeah.
wasn't like scoring it round by round. Sorry, go on, Maestro. You're cool now. We can hear you.
hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Tech issues, obviously. So yeah, I felt that it was very, very harsh, and this isn't an exact comparison, but I remember when Derek Chisora was being points were being taken away from him in that Dillian White rematch fight, a fight that I thought he was doing very well in. And of course, once those points were taken away, he had to obviously engage in a more reckless kind of boxing, and he obviously paid the price and got knocked out by White as a result. Now, Dan Aziz didn't get knocked out, but I don't think stylistically he would have fought the 12th round the way he fought it had what occurred in the 11th round not have occurred. I'm sure he would have tried to finish strong, but there was a little bit more of a kind of a reckless abandonment there, because at that point he really knew that he was down in the cards, and he kind of had to really, really push for it. Now, when it comes to some of these rounds earlier on in the fight, there is something I want to make mention of. And I'm saying this with all due respect to Buddy McGirt. I have a lot of admiration for Buddy McGirt. I think Buddy McGirt is a great coach. But there was something that happened in some of those earlier rounds that I really, really didn't like. And it was vocalizing so loudly what he felt Dan Aziz was doing wrong. So I'll give you an example. Throughout the rounds, he was screaming at him, don't keep moving back. Stop moving back. Stop moving back. Look, judges are human beings. They hear that. It sounds like, whoa, he's not winning the round. I mean, he's not doing the plan. He's not doing what his coach wants him to do. And in fact, he's doing it so poorly that the coach is calling him out where almost the whole arena can hear, at least it sounded on TV, like you hear what he's saying. I mean, a slight adjustment to that statement is keep moving forward. Stay on them, keep moving forward. It's the same
So it's a positive.
But it's positively phrased and put out there, and these judges, they have ears, like they're hearing this. And when your coach is constantly yelling that in the fight, and it's a close round, you could see the judge say, well, he wasn't moving forward. He kept moving backwards. His coach was yelling at him, I'm going to give that round to Buatsi. And then you end up with a scorecard that's very different than Base's scorecard, or very different than Danny's scorecard, which is essentially virtually the exact same scorecard that I had. So those are some of my issues. And last thing I want to say is there was kind of two major themes for this fight for me. One is, who's the best in Britain, right? I don't think that question was answered by that fight, because based on that performance, I don't know if Buatsi beats Craig Richards in a rematch. I don't know if Buatsi
Craig is called for a rematch.
Yeah, I don't know if Buatsi beats Anthony Yard. I don't know if Buatsi beats Callum Smith, who just took a beating from Better Beef. The second question is, where are these guys on that world elite kind of level? And I'll be honest, if you look at it within that context of fight, we were watching the third place match at the World Cup or at the any other tournament. I didn't see two guys that are going to be competitive with either Bivol or Better Beef. I think the
Johnny Nelson said that
between 2 and 3 right now in the heavyweight division is enormous.
Johnny Nelson said that he mentioned the fact that he doesn't think that they're ready for the world level, so he'd rather see them mix it up domestically, even though they are the number 1 and the number 2 across the majority of the rankings. So he kind of like said exactly what you're saying. The thing is now, it's like, who's the best in Britain? Yes, I've said Buatsi. I always have. But there's some suggestion now that, we may get the fight that we've been talking about for years, which is the domestic fight between Buatsi and Yard. Even though we could spend all day talking about this, we're going to switch over. We're going to go over to America because there's a couple of other topics, and I'm mindful of the time. Speaking of light heavyweights, Khalil Cole, I think he fought a 20-0 And I think I can't remember how many fights Khalil has got so far. Somebody want to jump in with that?
He was 7-0-1 going into that
Right.
fight with 5 KOs.
Okay, so you're looking at obviously the matchmaking. Eddie's matchmaking style is more aggressive. I think it has been before, and I think he's doing it more now. He's aggressively matchmaking his fighters. In other words, are you the real deal? I'm going to really start to test you. I like Khalil Cole. He's somebody that stood out. Just the fact of his backstory, his background, all of that stuff appealed to me, and it was nice to watch him basically bully his opponent into submission. You could see that when those jabs started to really, really touch his opponent's face, he didn't want it. You know, when somebody says, make your presence known, get that respect early. That's what I saw from Khalil. But Danny, anyone, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, now Big Stepper, he was big stepping. I like Big Stepper.
That's it.
Yeah. And that's very true what you said about matching aggressively. But that it depends what fighters, because Jimmy Sains and George
Johnny
Liddard, George Liddard, they got soft touches, even though, mate, Jimmy Sains knockout was very brutal. That was very horrible. But yeah,
There's me
back to
smiling. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, like Steve Willis, but yeah. Khalil Cole, yeah, that was a very good performance. The way he chopped my man down, body shots. Yeah, that guy, yeah, he felt the force and he didn't want it. It was good. I see Khalil Cole. He called out Joshua Buatsi after the fight. Interestingly enough,
Did
yeah, he
he?
says he wants. Yeah, he says we want Buatsi next. Funny enough, they kind of got a little similar look to him about as Buatsi as well. But so that'll be interesting in the future. Obviously, he's only had 8 fights now, so I think that's a bit too early. But it's good that he's talking
Ambitious.
positively and ambitious. Obviously, we
But
saw
we can't
Ben
let
Whittaker.
Ben Whittaker do that.
Yeah, well,
Everyone
Ben
else
called.
can do that except for Ben Whittaker. All right? Yeah? Everyone else can do that except for Ben Whittaker.
Yeah.
Anyway, as you were.
Yeah, because Ben called out. Well, he says he can beat Dan and Buatsi on the same night or something like that. But hey, big stepper, keep stepping, man, and I like that. Good stuff, man.
My shot.
Yeah, what I'll say about this fight is that, look, he's 8-0, 6 KOs now. Osuna had a good record on paper, at least his record, but when you go actually into who he fought to get that record, what you're going to notice is that his fights were essentially on the Mexican club circuit. And spoiler alert, there aren't that many quality light heavyweights on the Mexican club circuit. So he had a padded record going into this fight. A lot of these fights are against people with losing records. Yes, he compiled an impressive, at least on paper, record as an undefeated fighter, but he hadn't really ever fought at this kind of level of.
But you're doing it again, Maestro. This
What?
is what I'm saying, because on paper it's black and white, so it doesn't matter. It's black and white. He's had 20 fights and won them, but when Ben Whittaker goes in with somebody with a losing record, well, look at his losses, blah, blah, blah. Do you think some of them losses on that Ben Whittaker's opponents thing might have been unfair? This is what I'm saying about the double standards that we have for fighters. It's not across the board. Shoot me now if I'm wrong. Come on, Mike. I'll take it.
You're not wrong, October. I'm just not. What I don't see it as a double standard. What I'm saying with
American bias,
Osuna, and no, not at all. Because what I'm going to say is that, again, it looks like Big Stepper is being tested, but I was actually at his previous fight at the Garden against a Sikh brethren from British Columbia named Bunit Bisla. I mean, again, on paper, Bunit Misla had a reasonable, nice record. He was undefeated, no losses, but he actually absolutely got destroyed. And again, when you look under the hood of the record, what you're going to see is a record built up against guys who are at a much lower level. And here's the thing. You actually have something in boxing that I'm sure you're all familiar with, which is you're building up a guy to be an opponent, right? So you got guys who are being built up against very low-level competition to get nice glossy records with undefeated streaks and et cetera, but they're literally being built up so that they can be used as an opponent for a Khalil Cole type person, et cetera. That's what this guy was. I can't actually say that he's being matched like super hard, to be honest with you, based on the guys he's been fighting.
Got a draw though, so he obviously got to be matched quite tough. He's got a draw in there already.
Well, yeah, I mean that particular fight he didn't look very well, but I mean to say that Juan Gerardo Osuna was a tough opponent, or Bunit Bisla was a tough opponent, I don't know. I mean they were undefeated.
We've got to do this with all opponents, then, haven't we? We've got to put this across the board, because on paper,
junior standard is a little too high, and I need to lower it because
very high. Because if we go and check out who
Junior hasn't fought anybody, and I'm like, well, actually, he has fought people, you know. But anyways,
Base, we got to get Base coming. Base, man, give us your thoughts.
No, look, everyone knows my opinion on Khalil Cole. He's one of the guys I've been following his career from sort of the amateurs, the last leg of the amateurs. I'm a big supporter of Big Stepper. I like his style, obviously, from Jersey. I like a lot of his story. I like obviously the backstory. I don't really play into a lot of that when it comes to what you can do in the ring. I very much prefer that, but as a whole, I resonate with someone, you know, had some troubles, turned their life around in that aspect. Very talented, got power, got good defensive abilities, and good punch selection. Knows when to press the gas and when not to. Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, I have to agree with Maestro a bit, because I did say in my predictions video, you know, he's 20-0, but you know, I know he's Mexican, so the majority of his career has probably been in Mexico. I said that I believe that probably the Mexican domestic standard is a lot tougher than some other places, like the same as with South Africa. A lot of those places, like, you either come out of there as the real deal, or you just come out of there beaten after a lot of battles. But Maestro does put into fair perspective that the light heavyweight scene in Mexico maybe ain't the one. If you go from, you know, maybe at like flyweight to say like lightweight or super lightweight, maybe welter, yeah, you probably got a bunch of killers in that sense. But the more you go up the levels, maybe it's a bit barren. Similar to the women's divisions, like, you know, when you get to super middleweight, there's no one there. But when you're in like bantamweight, it's killer after killer after killer. So it could be a very similar thing in that aspect. But I said just based on the actual punching power and the fact that he had 18 KOs, Khalil would need to be careful and make sure, obviously, he doesn't disrespect the power. And I predicted he'd go points. So he done much better than I expected. I thought he would win it comfortably on points, but he done much better than I expected. You know, 3 knockdowns, body work from the first round to the second round, you know, took him apart. Now I want to see him step up. I'd actually love if he may have said he wants Buatsi. I'd actually like him to say to Eddie, put me on your 5v5 in June. Now come out, announce yourself on the big stage. You got whether, I doubt they'll put him up against Anthony Yard, but you can get Zach Parker if you want. Like, if you take, you know, if you want to take on another 175 pounder, Zach Parker's there. Maybe they can find someone else that you can bring up or pull down from one of the other weights. I don't know how it would work, but I would, if I was him, I'd definitely say, look, get me out on that card. Let me win this event for you.
Ezra Taylor's on Frank Warren, isn't he?
I mean, I like Ezra, but Khalil takes him out. I'm like, Ezra's my guy, but Khalil will take him. Like, that's not even. I don't want that fight for Ezra right now.
Okay.
There's different levels to prospects, and yeah, that's not a nice move.
And Maestro, in Terence Crawford's 8th fight, he fought a guy 3-11, 3 wins, 11 losses. When he was 18-0, when he was 17-0, he fought a guy who was 15-10.
Right.
You know, that's
great. And show me the highlights package of Terence Crawford showboating against those 2 opponents. And I'll agree with you 100%.
That's not his style.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Big Stepper. You're complaining about Big Stepper. Big Stepper weren't showboating.
Oh no, Big Stepper. No, Big Stepper's doing his thing. I didn't have anything negative to say about Big Stepper.
No, you said his opponent.
No, all I'm saying is my comment was not about Big Stepper. My comment was about, I forget who said it, but him being matched tough. No,
it was me that said it.
Yeah, okay.
On paper.
This isn't him being matched tough. Like, go to a club show in Mexico. Like, follow the Mexican club circuit light heavyweight scene. Base finished my initial point because it's not the flyweight division. It's not the bantamweight division. It's not the featherweight division. This is club level Mexican light heavyweight boxing. That's what this guy came from. And by the way, a lot of those guys he fought on the Mexican light heavyweight club circuit had losing records. So, I mean, you can't tell me that this was a quote unquote tough matchup for Big Stepper. It was a showcase fight. And he did masterfully well in a showcase fight, just like he did in his last showcase fight against my Sikh brethren, Bunit Bisla from the Vancouver area. I mean, it's what it is. These are showcase fights.
Let's bring it back in because we're going to move on to Conor Benn and then we're going to go to the chat. If you've just joined us, welcome. It's the live boxing debate. We have Base the Kid, our US correspondent, Maestro, and we've got Danny, Fight Fan TV, or I like to call him Danny G. So welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you subscribe to all the channels. This should be running across all of our platforms live and across X, formerly known as Twitter. We've got to touch on Conor Benn, and then I'm going to jump into the chat because I've got one of my subscribers moaning that what's the point in posting a comment if we're not reading them? But I've got to touch on Conor Benn, and then we'll jump to the comments. Apologies, my lovely subscribers.
See, I'm too old for this shit. Look, when you made that comment about the chat, I agree with Danny. That's a Lethal Weapon reference, Danny.
Yeah. I know. Mr. Danny Glover. Come on, you know.
Conor Benn. Topic, he was also trending along with Buatsi, along with obviously Usyk Fury, which we're going to touch on as well. Conor Benn, his performance against Dobson, somebody that was ridiculed on the internet. We talk about tough matchmaking, people saying, well, he's been inactive, he's this, that, and the other. Conor Benn went the full 12. There's been comments about, well, where's his power gone? But I'm thinking, when was Conor Benn really ever known as a knockout artist? How many knockouts has he had? How many stoppages has he had on his record? And I'm going to go to Danny first for this one.
Well, he wasn't a knockout merchant early in his career. It's because I think it was like when he started fighting Sebastian Formella, where he started punching the life out of him behind closed doors and gave him a pasting for about 10 rounds. Then he stopped Samuel Vargas in the first, even though it was premature, but he was proper lighting him up. Then obviously he went points with Adrian Granados. Granados was on the run though, so Ben couldn't really tag him. Then he knocked out Van Herden and Algieri. So the problem is that he's knocked out two brand names, but people have to put things into context. He knocked out two brand names, but they were old. But then he's gone points with his last two guys, who nobody knows over here anyway. I don't know if Maestro might know, but I don't know. I didn't know these guys. And he's not seeming to drop these guys. So people are like, well, ain't the last thing to go in a fighter is the power. So where's the power? You know, people are clowning him and stuff like that. But the thing with Conor is, he just had that. There was a period where he was just really power punching and really letting them off. Like even the combinations, he was just letting them go, and he was really powerful. Then all of a sudden, he's had the case, and all of a sudden, it's like the power's not. It doesn't look quite. It's not having the same effect as it was having pre the scandal. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's where the problem lies, because I thought he was gonna. The way he was talking mad grease. Like I don't even want to do what I want to do right now because there'll be no fight and I'll get arrested. So it's best you calm down. Like he was talking like he was from the roads. I was like, okay, but yeah. So I was expecting a lot, but he didn't. You know, I saw Dobson had a Jamaican flag on his shorts, so
Yeah,
you know,
saw that.
tough brother. So yeah, Conor Benn, he was getting caught a lot, especially towards the end, uppercuts and hooks. Dobson, it's like he takes a while to kind of oil up. That's probably why he lost them 1 rounders he was in, because when I saw those, he lost them 1 rounders. I was like, what's all that about? But you know, the format probably doesn't suit him. Conor Benn, he loads up with everything so much, he spins himself off balance. His defense is not good. He's like an attacking fighter. He kind of fights similar to his dad, but he's a bit more explosive and tries to fight more Mike Tyson-ish with it. But yeah, he's not ready for none of them top boys in the welterweight division. He'll get caught in between those exchanges, and his defense is not good. The power's just not. I don't think the power's going to be there at 147. He sure ain't going to be hurting the likes of Chris Eubank Jr. So he needs to forget that, or he can just do it and go, oh well, I gave it a go. You know, there's guys like G-Chain who'll go, well, he got in there with him and he had the cojones and he got in there, so give him the ratings, because my man, he got in there, blood, and like he got in there, fam, and he punched him in the face, and it's but what it is, I don't rate them, man. Do you know why? Because I'm from the roads, yeah. It's like, yeah, for instance, Base, you know Sparks back in the day, yeah? Say everyone's getting lined up, and man tells everyone, yo, line up. I'm going for all your pockets. I'm going for all your pockets. Give me your phones. Give me your phone. And he goes to one brother. One brother doesn't have it and says, I'm not giving you my phone. And then Sparks goes, what? And then the brother punches Sparks, giving 2 bangs. Sparks then brutalizes him. But then this brother's going to get ratings because he didn't have it and gave 2 bangs, but he got knocked out cleaned out, chain gone, everything. But just because you didn't have it, all of a sudden he can bang up everyone else on end because he didn't have it, just for bravery points. No, you're not getting those bravery points off of me. No, fight people your own size, because the reason it's that same Kell Brook, it's that same Amir Khan thing. He didn't mind going up to fight Terence Crawford and Canelo and getting slumped out. Even bowled it against Terence Crawford, claiming low blow when he didn't even get low blow. Slumped by Canelo Alvarez, but that's cool because I'm meant to get punched up by them, man. But he didn't want to get punched up by a northern man in England, because then he has to walk down the road and it's like, oh, now there's a brother on turf who's better than me. So it's that whole thing. No, stop trying to go to the mountaintop. Fight the guys in your own class that you're meant to be fighting. Don't try and go to the Chris Eubank. Oh, but he's 2 weights above me. No, fight the guy 147 guys, but you won't. Why? Because you know you'll get slumped, man. So you're not gonna get no bravery points for going to the mountaintop without crawling, walking, skipping, triple jumping, high jumping. Don't try pole vault before you learn how to long jump, son.
Well,
so yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that, Danny, because this is actually something I said at the onset of this whole Ben versus Eubank fiasco, right? I was calling it essentially a meaningless fight, and be like, you don't understand. You're not from the UK. You don't understand how big this fight is. Stop it. Okay, half of my family's from the UK. I got a UK passport. I lived out in South London for 5 years, SW2. I'm very familiar with the UK. In fact, I was there for Pascal versus Frosh in Nottingham. I was there for Kotelnik versus Khan at the MEN Arena. I was there for Junior Witter's fights at the Alexandra Palace. So don't tell me I don't understand about UK boxing, because here's the deal, okay? They realized quite early on that this brother was not going to be competitive at 147. They knew that he wasn't ready forget Terence Crawford, Boots Ennis, Errol Spence Jr. He wasn't ready for Alexis Rocha. He wasn't ready for Cody Crowley. By the way, he's still not ready for these guys. So what did they do? Let's take a pause from 147 and let's start calling out a guy who fought recently at 168, and let's try to get him in a catchweight fight at, what was it, 57-pound catchweight against Eubank Jr. It was a swerve of the 147-pound division for a payday, as Canelo says. And what has happened now is that he's been brought back down to earth, so to speak, closer to the 147-pound division. And we're seeing what many of us knew all along. This guy is not ready for the cream of the crop in one of boxing's glamour divisions, the welterweight division. He's not ready, okay? You were asking me about Pistol Pete Dobson. I didn't want to go out and say this, but people who have asked me about him, because they know I live in the Bronx, they know I work in the Bronx, or recently I work in Harlem now, but I've been working in the Bronx. My friend Ludo from Teachers Talking Boxing, he's another Bronx teacher. He's actually been in gyms with Pete Dobson, okay? People here, you ask them about Pete Dobson, across New York City, I didn't know anybody in any gym, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx, that was picking Pete Dobson to beat Conor Benn. And by the way, none of those people even rate Conor Benn. They just weren't rating Pete Dobson. So it was obvious to me, at least, what was going to happen in this fight. And based on the previous fight, I thought that this was actually going to go to distance, but it wasn't going to be impressive. You're going to see Conor Benn huffing and puffing and throwing all of these power shots and landing a lot. But at the end of the day, there was not a single moment in this fight where I was like, you know what, Pete Dobson about to get finished, Pete Dobson about to be put down, Pete Dobson about to get stopped. No, he took his licks, he went the full distance. And again, we're talking about a guy who's been brought up from the club circuit with a clean, undefeated record. He'd never been in a fight that even comes close to approaching this level. And by this level, I mean, you know, the Sky Sport, BT Sport now,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
you know, DAZN,
TNT, yeah.
level of fights, right? So I think that it's pretty obvious what's going on right now with Conor Benn. And what's also obvious, you look at the kind of almost desperation. I don't know if you saw the IFL interview with Eddie after the fight, calling out Chris
Kevin Haney.
Jr. No, calling out Chris Eubank Jr., almost pleading with him to take the fight. To me, it just looks like they're trying to cash out Conor Benn at this point. They're just kind of trying to keep him active for as long as they can to make the play against Chris Eubank Jr. Because honestly, I'm looking at the division here, and I'm just not seeing guys that he's going to beat. Giasov, no. Budayev, no. I don't think he beats Avanesyan, if I'm going to be honest with you. Giovanni Santillan, I don't think so. Cody Crowley, absolutely not. So Stanionis, definitely not. And then before the fight, he was even calling out Tim Tszyu and guys at 154. What? Based on what we just saw? 154? Are you mad?
Base.
I mean, I didn't expect it to go in that direction, but hey, we're here now.
We're here.
Look, ultimately, I predicted it was going to go points. I had said quite a few. I had said beforehand that ultimately I look at Dobson, and yeah, I don't know if Danny stole this from a video, but the Team Combat League, it doesn't suit someone like Dobson. He looks very much like he's a guy that, you know, will warm into a fight, get defensive, make people expend some energy, then start to make them work afterwards. And that's exactly what he did to Conor Benn. So when I heard all the talk about, you know, I'm coming to take your head off in the first round, I had no faith that was going to happen in any way, shape, or form. There's many times I've seen footage of Dobson where, like, it looks like he's been hit, but you can clearly see it's almost like he gets the glove there just in the nick of time. He looks to be a very good defensive fighter, like good solid frame, defensive, can take a shot, knows how to ride a shot. But the most important thing is, as we was talking and what you said earlier, Red, about obviously this whole thing about everyone's looking at Conor like, well, where's the power gone? The power was never there to begin with. Like, he had some good stoppages, but if you look at the people he was stopping, they were either very, very old, like very long in the tooth, inactive, smaller guys coming up in weight, or guys that have just, like, you know, or have struggled to make that weight for like the last few years or whatever. So he was fighting, you know, impaired people. The last two fights, he's fought guys that are naturally bigger than him, Orozco, obviously tough Mexican, as we know. That 154 division is still very much a breeding ground of where they reign supreme. A young guy, younger than him, like I think he was 23. Also, a guy that we then later found out had failed some form of tests, adverse finding. We don't know what for, but so all of that. So he didn't knock him out. I didn't really take that to mean anything. I didn't think he was going to knock out Dobson, who's again another naturally bigger guy, can just about squeeze himself down to 147. But he was going to be comfortable at 154, maybe even 160. And bearing in mind there's been 2 previous matchroom fighters who pulled out of fights against him, whether that was because they was injured, whether they saw tape and they didn't like what they saw, whether they didn't think they looked good against him, whatever it might have been. I felt to myself, okay, there's something there. And then again, the Team Combat League thing, he's 3-7 in that, so he's had 10 fights in that. Yes, it's only 1 round of action at any given time, but that means he's still in the gym, still training to fight. So he's not just coming off the couch. He's having some under the hot lights action. So the fight played out as I predicted it would. And I'd said that I think that he would be a very tough test for Conor. He was. And that probably does, as the other 2 said, lead us to believe that Conor is not ready for the tops of the division. And people who think, oh, well, he needs a big fight to be able to get up for. Now, if you needed a big fight to get up for, you would have done a better job against Dobson. I don't believe the cards giving him 1 round and 2 rounds. Now, at worst he got 3 rounds in that fight, and probably you could say that he even ran him close and got 5. And that's coming off of taking the first 3 rounds off, basically, to warm into it. So yeah, I guess we know where Conor's level is in that aspect, and he can still improve. He's still a fairly young guy. How much he can improve, I don't know, but maybe they are just looking for the cash out, or maybe looking to just take big fight after big fight after big fight, and even if he loses all of them, get nicely paid in all of those matches. I'm not sure.
Well,
but
we've seen no, sorry, go
well,
on.
yeah, but just ultimately that's pretty much how I see it. It wasn't a great performance, but it wasn't terrible either. But it went the way I predicted it to go. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, sorry, babe, I didn't steal it off a video. Remember, I spoke to you on Thursday, and I was like, "Yeah, but he's getting punch up." I didn't say punch up, but he's losing these thingy ones. And you was explaining how that Combat League thing works. So it was you who explained to me how that went. So it was you directly in person. So big up, Base. I've got another shout out to give him, but hopefully we get that in later as well.
Yeah, we need to get that in later. And there's some, obviously the Twitter war's carrying on. We've got Javante Davis posting inboxes again from Eddie Hearn, trying to arrange fights. We had Haney Sr., I think, go up to Conor at the post-fight press conference, etc., etc. We've had all of that. We'll see what happens with Conor. But I did want to touch on one final thing with the Conor Benn situation. I've got to go back to Maestro for this. The Americans were speaking about 3 p.m., which they were okay with 3 p.m. But what they didn't seem to like was the Englishness of it all, the Britishness of it all. And call me biased. I don't care if I hear American voices over here, if I hear American commentator, if I hear American ring announcer, if we've got American fighters. I don't really care. But is there an issue over there in the US with the Brits being in the US? Do we annoy them that much that they just don't want to hear us speaking or whatever? Can you explain that?
Well, the United States is a big and diverse country. So I live in New York City, which actually has a lot of British people, expats, and I watch a lot of football. And there's a thing here in North America, at least in English speaking North America, Canada, and the United States, where, it's like almost a plus on your resume if you're British and you want to speak about football here. Like almost every soccer, football pundit show has British people on it, whether they're Scottish or English on commentary. And it's almost like the reverse there in England, because I brought this up to you earlier this week in the chat. I don't know why Big Mo has a job on Sky and working for Boxer. Are you literally telling me that there's no one in the United Kingdom that can read cue cards and announce people's names that they got to ship over this guy from the UK.
What's wrong with Big Mo?
I just don't think he's very good. And honestly, it's like, I thought you had rules in the United Kingdom where to give a foreign man a job, you need to prove that there's nobody in the country that can do the job. Are you telling me that there's nobody in? Because I have friends in England that unfortunately were not citizens like me. And when they needed to get a job, they had to go to the home office and figure that aspect out. I don't understand how there's no one in the UK that can ring announce. Is that like, why are they bringing over a man from the US? And by the way, we got hashtag turtleneck. What happened to turtleneck? What happened to the
right?
legend?
I'm going to pause it right there because we've got a super chat, and if we've got a super chat, we've got to put that as priority.
And then I'll answer your question about the US, the UK
Okay.
in Vegas.
So shout out to WM Boxing Views. Thank you very much for the donation of $4.99. Guys, the super chats do show up and these will stand out. If there's a lot of traffic in the chat, the super chats will stand out. So sorry if I haven't got to you yet. Shout out to you all. This is a question I'll leave on there, but we're gonna answer it in a bit. And the question is, what will Fury do next to get out of fighting Usyk? Kidnap his trainer? Fury v Usyk will not happen. So that is in the starred box. We're going to come back to that. Everyone's smiling. It's a topic we're going to cover, but I need Maestro to go over this before we move on to.
I want to wrap this up. So no, generally speaking, I have not heard about people complaining about Brits on podcasts. Okay. I've actually heard more complaints about US announcers on DAZN. The biggest one being Sean Porter. I've heard a lot of complaints about that. But, you know, when it comes to this particular show, I'm actually a big fan of the afternoon fights. This was actually super early because they're on the West Coast in Vegas. So the doors open for that event at 10 a.m. local time. Very, very, you know, that's an anomaly, obviously. It was, you know, 2 p.m. for us here in New York, but they're obviously even for 3 hours behind us on the West Coast. So that's 10 a.m. in the morning over there. Pretty early, or 10 or 11. Whatever. But doors opened up anyways at 10. Look, it was a small venue, extremely small. I don't even know if that was the big room at the Cosmopolitan they were in. It didn't really look like it.
It was 3,200 capacity.
Okay, so maybe it was the big room then, but they weren't showing it on camera. So they were probably hiding the fact that the upper rows maybe were empty. I don't know if it was a sellout or not. You couldn't really see that on TV. But generally, Barry Jones is one of my favorite commentators. I love it when he's on DAZN. I also think Darren Barker is very good at his job as well. So I don't have a problem with the UK DAZN people. The only person I've ever had a problem with really is Tony Bellew, when he's filling out scorecards and then rushing to the corner to scream instructions at Derek Chisora against Pulev and then running back to go fill out his scorecard again. I just don't understand how you can do that. But no problems with Brits on this side. But then you guys also got to remember I'm half Brit myself, so I may not be the best person to answer that.
Well, we're going to move on to the final part because, you know, we can argue about Big Mo. I think Big Mo's cool, but whatever. But the final part, what we want to talk about, and I'm going to play it, and hopefully I don't get copywritten for this, but it was...
He said, I just want to...
And he knows to talk English. You know to talk English.
I know. Yeah, but he said that he wanted to wish to Tyson fast recovery and make sure, God bless, everything is going to be okay in his camp.
Okay, and Egas, do you feel... Thank you, Alexander. Appreciate it. But Egas, never call me a coward again. I've had 35 professional fights. I've been boxing 18 years of my life. I've climbed off the canvas 10 times of the biggest punches in history to win. Never a coward. Never back down from any man in my life. And if any man calls my wife a bitch, I take his fucking teeth out. Do you
I didn't call your wife a bitch.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
I didn't do that shit.
Well, Well, I'll apologise for that, then.
Don't
because I
apologise.
and I know
It happens.
I've boxed all my life.
It happens. It happens,
How
brother.
can you call me a coward? You've never boxed in your life. How am I a coward? I've had 35 professional fights. I'm a 2-time undefeated heavyweight champion. I'm the second longest reigning lineal champion in history. How am I?
Yeah. So that was literally so credit to Ariel Helwani. It's his YouTube channel. So if we get copywritten, so what? Credit to that. Ariel Helwani, the man that sits in the middle and gets His Excellency Tyson Fury, Algis Klimas, and obviously Alexander Usyk into a virtual room to have this out. There was a couple of things that were raised, and I do think that Algis called his wife a bitch, or he said, "Get your bitch to hit you with a pan," blah, blah, blah. That was the quote. You could argue language barrier. Bitch, maybe he was referring to one of his fighters, but I took it as he meant that to be his wife, which to me was extremely offensive. So I understand why, obviously, Fury was pissed off about that. When it all came out, when it all started and the rumours were rumbling, first we hear about Opetaya sparring 5 rounds and then all of a sudden he's going back, and then 2 weeks later, this mysterious footage leaks out. The fight's not happening. Johnny Nelson sort of mentioned something about it. What did you guys think of that? Because the writing was always on the wall that something was up, and I'm going to go straight to base.
So what I thought about when Opetaya was in the camp? Or
no, just when obviously it came out the other day that the fight was off.
Well, yeah, I mean, I said I thought the same thing that I always thought. Typical Tyson Fury. Before having all the facts and knowing what had gone on, if there was ever going to be someone or a reason why this fight got postponed, it was only ever going to be one person, and that person was there. There's multiple people who said this fight wasn't going to happen on the on the date that it was announced. I remember we had a conversation the other day, and I goes, well, no, they put out the trailer now. That thing costs a lot of money. You can't you ain't putting out the fight after that comes out. But lo and behold, it was the same thing that's happened. Now, when you sort of conflate that, and look, sometimes it's not fair to conflate all past transgressions with this, because when you go into a trial, you do a trial on a case-by-case basis. But ultimately, people remember traits and habits, all right? And lawyers will specifically always try and go for any repeat offenses to show character flaws or repeat traits within someone. And in this particular instance, you've had Tyson Fury on numerous occasions say, I've got no interest in fighting the little pumped up middleweight. Why would I want to fight him? The belts belong in the West. They don't belong in the East with the foreigner that doesn't speak English. He's always said, well, wait, when did I ever say I cared about Undisputed? That's you lot. That's the other guys. I have no interest in that. Maybe if you want to pay me a shed load of money, I might consider it. So you've got all of this built up. Then you've got his dad saying that he wasn't happy with the Ngannou camp, and he hasn't really been happy with this one, and he thinks Tyson needs a little bit more time. That's what he said, I think, about a month and a half ago. You've got those scenarios. You've then got what's it called? You've got the whole thing with Opetaya, which is very weird to go over there, go to spar for a fight that's about to take place in 5 weeks from then, but to not have any preparation for yourself, to then go back to Australia, to then have to come back 2 weeks later, which doesn't really make sense, because your internal body clock's going to be all over the place. You're going through about 5 or 6 different time zones to get from there back, and then to go back the other way. There's a lot of things in there. So then when you hear all of that, and you hear a bunch of people saying, I bet you this fight don't happen on the 17th. You get the dad saying, yeah, he needs some more time, but we are where we are. And then all of a sudden, the fight gets called off due to a cut in training, when no one then has any knowledge of what happened or whatever. So then you start thinking, oh, okay, well, it sounds like typical Fury. It sounds like typical shenanigans. Then you see the quote unquote footage, which to me is very inconclusive to begin with. Like, it looks like it was recorded on a Samsung S1. We're talking 240p resolution. I don't know how you get that in 2024, but that being said, to me, the quote unquote elbow looks like it doesn't even land above the chin. The way that the head snaps back looks like the reaction of someone that's got hit on the chin and not in the eye.
All right,
Just
so
as an example.
saying
Wait, I'm not finished, Maestro. You can have your go in a minute. Let me keep going.
Parliamentary procedure.
Yeah. Then after all of that, then he goes to wipe the supposed eye in this footage that is supposed to be of the thing, and nothing comes off on the white glove. There's just so many different things to make you say, I don't know if I can trust the credibility. Now, look, I'm not saying that it's not the case. What I am saying is there's always a common denominator, and it just always happens to be him. So if myself and everyone else are gonna not believe or need more convincing, so be it. As many people have said, as I've said, and a lot of other YouTubers have said, right now, it's the boy who cried wolf. Even when you're telling the truth, you are not believed instantly. That just is what it is. On a side note, before I let anyone else jump in that particular MMA hour, I haven't watched the whole thing, but I've seen the Fury, the stitches and whatnot, right? That doesn't look like a cut that was stitched up yesterday or the day before.
That. Yeah,
that looks like it's been blended in. That looks like it's actually been it's been there for a couple of weeks. So I've got suspicions about when this actually happened, and now that we're just finding out about it. Because if it's freshly stitched up, I couldn't see the stitches. It looked already like it was healing over them. That's all I want to say. Whoever wants to go for it.
All right, I'll jump in. So I don't know. I wasn't timing that. I think we're close to 4 minutes. I can sum up what Base said in a lot shorter time. I got it wrong. I let my anti-Fury bias cloud my judgment before I had all of the facts, and I jumped to conclusions. I went on my channel. I started referencing the WWF and people cutting themselves and all kind of other stuff that has nothing to do with boxing. Okay, so here are the facts. Here, and I'm going to quote my man Joe Habib, because he's coined the term, Ringside Reporter Live. He's coined the term. It's called, ready for it, Fury Derangement Syndrome, FDS. All right, a lot of people suffer from this particular ailment. They dislike Fury so much that anything that happens, it's Fury's fault. Anything that's gone awry, Fury did it. Fury said this, that, and the third in 2018. Therefore, it applies to a fight being canceled in 2024. Look, I'm sorry. Okay, I don't know what more evidence people need at this point. Turkey LL Sheikh, and by the way, the whole video is on his channel as well. His excellent. Literally was sitting beside Tyson Fury, co-signing all of this. All right, and went to the extent of saying, I thought it was a little bit.
I thought that was funny. I know what you're going to say.
I guess you're just the biggest super fan in the world, and you got so much money, but you're there like Tony Montana with videos.
Tony Montana
supervising sparring sessions with Tyson Fury. I mean, look, the fact is, it doesn't matter if this cut didn't take place Friday or Thursday or took place a little bit earlier. Turkey LL Sheikh actually said that Tyson Fury went to him, and probably out of shame, probably out of humiliation, probably out of the feeling of not wanting to disappoint Turkey, actually volunteered to continue on with the fight. So look, the footage to some may look grainy. It didn't look that grainy to me. I mean,
come on.
We saw a sparring session. We saw a point of contact. To me, it doesn't matter whether it was the point of the elbow or whether it was the glove. The point is, immediately a contact happened, and you could see that there was an issue with the eye. And Turkey has gone on to say that is actually the incident that caused the cut. So at this point, what are we saying? Not only is Tyson Fury's a liar, but His Excellency is a liar, and there's this grand conspiracy to ruin Usyk and constantly delay this fight to benefit Fury. Fury derangement syndrome. I'm sorry. And the last thing I gotta say, this one I do agree with by Yunan, who I don't always agree with. The headgear was very loose in that sparring footage. And the fact is, if this was 2 weeks out from the fight, they shouldn't have been doing hard sparring, especially for a fight of this magnitude. At that point, you should really be doing what we call la escuela de boxeo in Spanish, touch spar, a distance, timing, not a full contact spar, but more of a technical spar. But the last thing I want to say is this. This guy, Aegis Klimas, for him to bring in Tyson Fury's wife like that and call her out of her name, totally classless, totally unmanly as far as I'm concerned. At the end of the day, even the mafia has rules. You don't involve family, children, significant others, women. What is he dragging them in, or her in for this like this? And then he's challenged on it. And rather than just say, you know what, my man, I'm sorry, I got a little emotional, I want to apologize right now when your wife, I would have actually respected him a little bit if he had said that. Look, the moment we're all disappointed. I shouldn't have said that. I was speaking off the cuff. But he then acted like he never said it. Look, we know you said it, bro. We know you said it. And not only that, you wanted us to know that you said it.
No, he didn't say he didn't say it. He said he didn't. He said he wasn't talking about Paris. That's what he said.
Who's he talking?
Who was he talking?
He's talking about a bitch hitting him with a frying pan.
Got your bitch to hit you. I mean, how many people have quote unquote bitches? I mean, it's not. Well, it doesn't have to be his wife. Mate, think about it. Why would Tyson Fury be referring to his wife as a bitch? Why would that be his bitch?
You know what? It's the context.
His bitch could have been one of his fanboys in the team.
Wife. It's the context of the frying pan, home, wife. That's how I read it as a female. I read that, and I looked at it as like, what?
It sounds like a misogynistic comment, to tell you the truth. And by the way, if that's not what he meant, then he could have clearly said, no, I didn't mean that. I was talking about one of your lackeys or whatever. He never said that. He just straight up said, no, I didn't say it.
No, he said, I wasn't talking about your wife. That's what he said. Listen to it again.
He said he wasn't talking about his wife. He denied that it was his wife.
By the way, what was the point of saying, and you can quote me on that, word for word? That was in the statement. You can quote me on that, word for word. That's what he said. That's literally what I was thinking, Wilma Flintstone. So that was the image that was in my mind. Anyways, look. Turki Al-Sheikh, regardless of what people think about Tyson Fury, Turki Al-Sheikh is not a liar. He's the one controlling this whole operation. He's the one making all these big fights. I was very impressed by that whole interview yesterday. I mean, that actually took me back.
10 million compo is what got up my ears up when he actually said, well, if you don't have this fight, if this fight gets postponed again, you're paying 10 mil out of your pocket. How about that then? And they both just had to sit there like obedient students.
What the bring back base was referencing with wrestling. This was Brother Love. This was Classy Freddie Blassie. This was Bobby the Brain Heenan. This was a new major character in the sport of boxing, driving the sport, driving the heavyweight division to where I think it needs to go. And what we discovered, this guy's got charisma, this guy's got humor, and he has the unique ability to get Tyson Fury to pipe down. Did you notice that? No. Yeah. Champ, calm down, champ. I got this. Yeah. The Turki Al-Sheikh, His Excellency, is exactly what we need in the sport of boxing right now, especially in the heavyweight division.
Shout out to Aaron Daly. Thank you very much for the £5 donation. Tapping into show love. Great panel. Thank you for joining us, Aaron. As the many of you, I think we're up to 100 now. So if we could show some love, hit the like, subscribe to each of the channels, whichever one that you're watching on live, head over to the other channel and show them some love too. We're going to switch over at base. You can give us your 50 pence worth as well.
No, I didn't.
It's Danny next.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry. Before we go there, doubling back for base. So Aaron has kindly contributed on Base's channel too. This is what we like. Thank you very much.
Salute, Dales. Much appreciated, bro.
From Birmingham as well. So shout out to the Brummies. We keep it loyal.
Yes. First of all, just before fair use by October Red for that audio. Fair use, just so you don't get strict. Strucken, by the way.
Fair
You
use,
can
educational
now.
purposes. Thank
Educational purposes, yeah. So, now that was funny. That was funny because that interview, it looked like Tyson was there under duress. The way he was sat there.
Somebody in the chat says, Tyson, blink twice if you need help. Somebody in the actual live chat. Hilarious.
No, because the way he was sat there back here, and he was so under manners while you had His Excellency trying to shape up, going, yes, we want to see Boxing fight. Like, he just looked like a madman. And he's like, and the thing is, who is it? It's the more charismatic one, Alex Krasuk, yeah? He said ages ago, don't pull out the fight. I know you're going to pull out. Don't pull out the fight. Yeah, and this was months ago. And Ty's like, no, I won't. No, I won't. What is he going to do? So the moment I heard fight postponed, everyone knew it had to only be Fury. Once again, and he has form for this. Every time there's a big fight, he does a pull out. He goes over to Dusseldorf. Yes, he gets the victory. When it comes to rematch time with Klitschko, what does he do? Pull out.
So every time he self-mutilates himself and commits self-harm, is that what?
Maestro, let the guy talk. You've had your chance, man. Parliamentary.
Yeah. Can we have Jam Down's comment up there one more time, please?
Where's Jam Down? Which one is it?
You know, Captain.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. God, there's so many comments right there. Go on, carry on now while I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it.
The Captain save a whole comment. I know what he's talking
about. Yeah. So just relax. Yeah. So he pulled out at the rematch there. Then he went off and said, "Oh, I've got mental health," but he got busted for the drug thing anyway. Then when he was meant to fight Wilder the second time, he postponed it. Then in the third one, when he meant to give him his due rematch, that was about 18 months in between. He was trying to get out of it with arbitration, and then he had some kind of injury. Then anytime when he's fighting guys like Dillian White, what's his name? Wallin, Tom Schwartz, Chisora, he never pulls out of these guys' fights. He never pulls out of these fights.
No, don't forget Dillian White the first time in 2019. He pulled out of that.
When it was going to be a real fight.
Let the man, hold on, please.
When it was going to be a real fight with Dillian, he pulled out of that one, making all these excuses. When he knew Dillian, he'd been knocked out by Povetkin, he wasn't the same guy. Then all of a sudden he didn't pull out. Now he knows. Hold on, you've got a small rabbit-toothed middleweight. Why are you pulling out so many times? Want so many mad demands for a middleweight, like man with an earring, this and that. Because what it is, you see, Fury, he's one of them guys. He's got that big man syndrome, yeah. He don't mind if he loses to someone like, say, AJ. He wouldn't like it, but he can live with it. But the worst thing for a big man who thinks that it's all about how big you are and, it's the size of the gun, not the effect of the bullet, is when you lose to a small person, because you can't compute it. That's why AJ had a bit of a meltdown. Everyone was like, what's that? But it's when you lose to a smaller person, you're looking at him thinking, how can this guy beat me? But Fury knows deep down.
AJ said was, how could you beat me? I'm bigger than you.
Yeah, and Fury has that complex. And Fury knows deep down that Usyk's going to beat him. He knows it. Because and as I said, he's always got a problem with guys 6'3". He's been dropped by Pajic, who's 6'3". He got dropped by Steve Cunningham, a cruiserweight, 6'3". He got beat. Even his dad said he lost that first fight to John McDermott, 6'3". When David Haye pulled out with the cut and it was meant to get rescheduled, Fury didn't want to go through with it. Another 6'3". Usyk, 6'3". I'm telling you, this guy, and Fury knows it. He knows what's coming.
So
and Nganou's 6'5".
So just to clarify, we have two people on this panel that are accusing Tyson Fury of purposely pulling out of this fight. Is that what we're saying?
I'm not saying purposely.
No, I think what it is, with Grace is saying it's the boy who cried wolf. So he was saying, look, it's about credibility. He's not disputing
it. Danny sounds like he's straight up saying that Fury.
Danny sounds like he's saying he's pulled out. Yeah. I don't think he's purposely done it. I think he got caught. He's got injured.
Let's not ride the fence here, because again, this is Fury derangement syndrome. Symptoms include stomach pains, fevers, night sweats, headaches, and an ability to engage in coherent logic. Okay, because I'm sorry. No. By your logic, because Arthur Betterbeeb has withdrawn from fights multiple times. He's one of my favorite fighters, but he's withdrawn from fights multiple times. Okay, that means that if he gets cut ahead of the Bivol fight, that what? Arthur Betterbeeb purposely took a blade to his eye and cut himself? Because
that blading's wild. That's wild. I mean, that is.
I never said that. I never said he's blading.
People are literally out here making videos referencing Fury cutting himself to get out of this fight.
No, I've seen those videos, but let me finish. Let him
chop. Let him chop, man.
Let me finish. I don't think he's blading like when Rocky said to Mickey, "Cut me, Mick." I don't think he's doing that. But I just find it very cool. Like, it's just mad how every time they're saying don't pull out, and he keeps pulling and having all these mad reasons why he don't want to fight this man. And it's just like Fury just reminds me of a real dodgy dealer. It's just a real dodgy. He with the fans, he's a real dodgy dealer. He's a man. He'll give you a good plumbing job and might do your tiling, but then he'll give you a moody roofing and then fly tipping outside your yard. It's like, come on, man. You can't do this at the end of the day. And by the way, shout out to Base, because a lot of people were saying it looked like Jao Patai or Argon Smasiki, but Base the Kid, he was the one who got it correct. It was Alexis.
How do you know it's correct?
Alexis Barrier.
Confirmed?
Barrier.
Confirmed?
It's
confirmed?
Credible sources.
Yeah.
So
well, it's not confirmed, is it?
So by show,
I'm saying it's Jao Pattaya. So
by show of hands, who here believes that Tyson Fury has willfully withdrawn from this fight?
I think he's willfully, because even that thing where he got hit with the elbow in the chin and he's gone all of a sudden straight away, oh, come on. It's like, hold on, what's that about? But it was a little bit too fast.
I mean, he literally had the same response to Otto Wallin in the middle of their fight, telling him to cut it out. I mean, whatever.
No.
At the end of the day, I get it. This is a guy who literally had a large segment of the U.S. boxing public believing that he went into the Deontay Wilder fight with loaded gloves and had Deontay Wilder's assistant trainer on the payroll, willfully spiking Wilder's water, that, you know, he had the complexion for the protection and the commission was in on it. And all of this everybody was in on it. Fury derangement syndrome. We're back at it because now His Excellency's a liar. Because basically for you to believe, Danny, what you're saying, that means that
don't want to be calling him a liar.
Everything that Turkey Al Sheikh said,
black Mercedes blacked out, turn up outside your yard, and Danny goes missing.
No, he's trying to do that whole scareman tactics. Maestro's trying to do the scareman tactics. But at the end of the day, Maestro, Turkey Al Sheikh even kind of half said it. He goes, listen, all right, guys, if he's scared, if Fury's scared and he pulls out one more time, wink, wink, if he's scared and he pulls out one more time, then Usyk can fight whoever he wants. He can handpick. And if Usyk's scared and he pulls out, then Fury will fight Anthony Joshua. So he's even putting scared talk into the talk. It ain't like, oh, it's just an accident. Even he is having reservations about it, because even that, come on, Maestro, you have to.
He's put that in there because he knows the public perception. So he's trying to give us a surety.
He probably put that in there because Usyk team asked for some kind of contingency.
Surety.
Which, by the way, if I was managing Fury, I would be asking for contingency plans too, because these camps cost money. I know I'm in contact with a light heavyweight who's in that camp. They were based out of Spain, preparing for this fight. He's training in that camp because he's actually helping prepare one of Usyk's guys for what would have been one of the undercard fights. They're all taking this fight very seriously. They're training very hard. A lot of money is going into these camps. A lot of time is going into these camps. A lot of time away from families and home is going into these camps. So, of course, if you're Usyk's team, you want some kind of contingency that, look, I'm going to get compensated for all of this time, and I'm going to get a fight, a big fight, a major fight, a significant fight if this happens again. I don't necessarily think
Pause 1 second, because somebody's jumped in the comment. Yeah, it's okay, though. It's not racism with travelers. Been down this road before. What's going on in the chat? Well, there's nobody being racist in here. What are you on about?
I don't think they're accusing anybody on this panel of racism, but obviously there is a lot of anti-gypsy, anti-traveler.
Well, I don't even say the G word. I call them travelers. And anybody that watches my lives will know that I don't even use the G word because I'm not comfortable using it.
Right. Well, I used it. You, Roma, travelers, etc. There is a lot of prejudice against these particular groups of people and accusations that that.
Yeah.
Because it's terrible stuff. The fact is, none of us are saying that. Even the people who are critical of Fury here are not saying it's because of his ethnic background. I think both Bass and Danny are saying it's because of a track record of saying one thing, doing another, disparaging his opponents. Look, at the end of the day, this thing with David Hay from a few years ago looks terrible right now.
But David Hay has come out and said, even though that's happened, I still feel uncomfortable about it happening to him, even though he said those things about me.
Yeah,
David Hayes come out and said, I still don't like to hear it because I know what it's like to get injured before
a big fight,
before a big fight. So I hear that, but what we've got, like I said, is the puppet master that's pulled everybody together and said, stop with your rubbish. He's going to heal up. I've offered him to go to special surgeons in, I think he mentioned Sweden, I can't remember. Mentioned something about special place, heal him up fast. We're looking at May the 18th. And when you look at it, you think, May's kind of far away. But it isn't, is it? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to end it because we've been going for, an hour and a half now. We're only supposed to do like an hour and 15 minutes on I wish Fury a speedy recovery. Thanks to His Excellency for keeping us all entertained, for getting these fights on. Because now we know that I think, is it the Beterbiev Bivol is going to be the headline of the 5x5. Eddie Hearn has confirmed that it should be around March the 8th, 9th when we get the full 5x5 list. So we've got that to look forward to. He let that out when I spoke to him the other day. Guys, if you've asked questions and we haven't been able to get to them, it's due to time. Thank you very much for everybody for the super chat. All 105 of you that are in here at the moment. Like I said, please subscribe to each of our respective channels. We'll do another one of these again. We don't know when, but we will definitely be doing one. Panel, you know what it is. You've been all great, all comments, all fun, all differences in opinions, and that's why we come together. Guys, for now, you know what it is. Any final words from the panel?
No, just big ups everyone. And I just want to say that whoever's in that Fury camp, you're making millions of pounds. You can't be using them crime watch type camera. You know them crime watch cameras.
You know what it is? That footage was leaked. That footage was forwarded 7,000 times. So by the time you're putting it up and leaking it out on the internet, that's not fresh footage. That's why it looks 900 years old. That's what happens. When you keep forwarding, someone's
No, you know crime watch when they say it's all brainy.
We could go on arguing about this all night long. The stream's ending. It's ending.